Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today's Thursday. It is July the 24th, and I appreciate all of you being along for the ride here. If you are listening over on Spotify, make sure you've given us a 5-star review. If you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, if you're listening over on Rumble, can you go ahead and subscribe and give us a little thumbs up there? We appreciate that. It bumps us up in the rankings, moves us onto the leaderboard. We're going to have, I think, a lot of fun today, because we have a big thank you in order, and I want to give credit where credit is due. The FBI has saved the city of New York again. New York is now safe from a man who made homemade fireworks and then decided they were a bad idea and tried to throw them away. But the FBI intercepted him as he attempted to get rid of them. You can imagine the amount of terror that he would have caused if he had been able to get rid of the fireworks that he created with his bad ideas. That's what we're going to talk about. And there's the criminal complaint, which is quite amusing to me. The implications that at any moment, our federal intelligence services, our law enforcement services are protecting us. Federal. I'm not talking about your state, and I'm not talking about your local. The local cops do heroic work every day. They do some bad things sometimes too. But overwhelmingly, the people that keep you sleeping safe in your bed at night, they live near you, and they're not federal agents. So we're going to talk about that. For $11 billion a year, the best case scenario of a terrorist attack is a 50-something-year-old man in Long Island who made fireworks. They claimed that the firework was so powerful, it was 600 times the legal limit. You guys are going to be shocked. Was able to find a video of someone using a firework exactly that same size online on YouTube. And I'll share it with you, and I'll show you the amount of devastation that this man could have caused. You guys are going to enjoy that as well. All right, so we'll talk some Ghislaine, whatever her name is, Maxwell. We'll do a little bit of discussion about that because the House has decided to go home, and everybody's still interested. The left has a curious new fascination with the Epstein situation. For those of us that have been tracking it for quite a while, I do want to, in fact, read the sentencing documents and the press release from the DOJ so that you also know what was at least out there. How many people have these fantasy ideas about what was involved in that case and what was not involved in that case, and how recently anything was involved in that case? At the end of the day, we have to look at evidence and what's actually been proven so far in court of law, and then everything else beyond that is speculative. And speaking of speculative, I also want to talk about something that makes me sort of smirk. Two people that seem to have what the kids are calling crashed out. I've watched sort of a bizarre meltdown. I don't watch her show, so full disclosure, and I'm not going to watch Candace Owens. I'm not interested in watching her show, but I will show you Candace Owens versus Candace Owens, and that's kind of fun. She had a lawsuit filed against her by the French president and his wife for defamation. And it appears that, like, the things she says are pretty crazy. You guys can tell me if you think otherwise. For those of you that watch the Candace show, why? Just why? And if you're not following some of the accounts out there that do nothing but chop up pieces of Candace Owens' show, so those of us who don't want to watch it can see what's going on, it's worth watching that. Also, apparently, James O'Keefe is fascinated with me. We're going to have a deposition with O'Keefe Media and James O'Keefe. He's attempting to build some kind of a fake documentary about how I stole $10 million from him and how I took down Project Veritas. I'll just tell you guys, none of that happened. But that hasn't stopped me from living rent-free in his head. Got a couple funny videos. Apparently he's going on a media circuit, talking to anyone with the first name Alex Jones, Alex Stein, and letting people know that he's not gay. No idea why, but I have some clips of it, and it makes me laugh. So since we have to talk about that, and I probably have to expose that or give them the opportunity to know in the deposition that I'm doing next week, we'll just play some clips of James O'Keefe doing weird stuff too, kind of like Candace Owens. Okay, before we get into any of those things, let's do something that's not weird. How about you protect yourself from scammers, from online criminals, from hackers, etc., etc. You might want to check out our service that we use. It's patriot-protect.com/Kyle. Again, patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Using my name as a promo code will save you 15% on an annual subscription. It costs you single-digit dollars per month. You can do one fire and forget thing. I want to say it's like $80 or something like that, or $90 for the year. And that may or may, I can't remember if that's with or without the discount. It's not a huge amount of money. And what it does is it takes your name out of the pile. Criminals are constantly looking for the easiest options, the most readily available scamming targets. And if they have your bank account numbers, your email providers, if they have access to your healthcare portals, if they have your passwords, your name, your address, your phone number, and so on, they can get a lot of these things through public web searches. Then they'll call you up or they'll email you with something that seems really legit. Some of these people are quite talented. That's how they make a living. They only have to put time in to make a template to scam you one time. And if they can get one person an hour to fall for their scam, then they win. Don't be that person. Don't be in that pile. If you want your name scrubbed out of the data search, the people search websites and these data brokers, you want to make sure you have Patriot Protect. They're scraping the internet constantly and trying to get this stuff out of there. And then they're also scanning the dark web, finding out whether your stuff has been exposed so you can update your passwords or you can change your numbers as needed. Not necessarily your phone numbers, but you might want to change things like bank accounts. You may want to move things out of the way. You may need to move to a P.O. box. Take your pick. If you guys want to be smart and get ahead of criminals, make sure you at least know that they're targeting you and take your name out of the pile. Make yourself a hard target with Patriot Protect. It's patriot-protect.com/KYLE again, and the link is in the show description below. Let's do this. And the one thing that I also wanted to say is that there's a couple people that are out there in the public sphere, and I don't have like a real justified cause for disliking them, but I have a visceral dislike for this guy, Mike Johnson. He's the Speaker of the House. I really don't like him. I've never met him. I can just listen to him speak, and he sounds exactly like the greasy, slimy politician type that I would expect. All of his answers kind of ooze this kind of like slickness. Do you remember why we had Mike Johnson? Does anybody remember why? It's really critical that we actually remember a little bit of history. We had this little changeover in 2023. There was this rebellion led by Matt Gaetz, and all the Democrats went along with him to get rid of this Intra-party hack that everybody was sort of mad about, but then some people weren't sure, right? They wanted to get rid of Kevin McCarthy out of California. He ended up leaving. Kevin McCarthy was the Speaker of the House. And the big changeover that we were going to get, and I remember this very, very top of mind. For some reason, a lot of people don't. I've had this conversation. You know why we got rid of this guy? Nobody knows. The reason why they got rid of Kevin McCarthy, the stated purpose at the time, the $100 bet that I made with then member of Congress, George Santos, who's now going to prison, by the way, which is also kind of a travesty considering the amount of like corruption that it was found guilty of. Like, it wouldn't normally pass the sniff test that they would even go after him. But I bet George Santos $100 in, I think, October of 2023, that there was no chance Republicans would do single subject, single issue appropriations bills and bring those to pass. That was the entire purpose of it. This is what it looked like. He said on Fox News Sunday Morning Futures, quote, "And oftentimes the Senate tries to jam the House and force an omnibus spending bill. We're not doing that here anymore. We're going to have single subject bills in our separate appropriation bills." And so pushing that into January, I think, would assist us in the endeavor. That was actually him making an argument for a continuing resolution so that they could do single subject bills. He's never once done that. Not a single time. And I don't know why. And neither do you, to be fair. We don't know why. Maybe because he's a fake. Maybe because it's fraudulent. It's gross. Let's start with the Epstein piece here. I'm going to come back to Mike Johnson because he is the end of this story, but I also wanted to introduce my frustration with him, which is this sort of like lie that they were going to do something, and they've never done it, and no one's ever held them accountable. And then I've got some video clips of him talking, and you can just tell me if he doesn't ooze. He does sound like Smithers the guy from The Simpsons who sucks up to Mr. Burns, except Mr. Burns in this case would be Donald Trump, and Donald Trump doesn't sound like Mr. Burns that much. So maybe we need a little redraft of that. Let's start with this. The White House is tightening its grip on Epstein messaging. What you're seeing on the screen is Todd Blanche. He's the Deputy Attorney General. He's the number 2 over at DOJ. It says White House aides have made it clear that no one in the administration is allowed to talk about Epstein without high-level vetting as Trump attempts to change the subject. This is coming from NBC News, which is fairly partisan in so much as they are now very, very interested in this story. And I don't think it's a genuine interest per se. And yet the problems persist. Because if the White House wanted to make themselves look guilty, if they wanted to make Donald Trump look like he's hiding something, they're doing a bang-up job of it. They continue to obscure and obfuscate and try to act not guilty while looking really, really guilty, because people who are not guilty, they understand. Like, this is a PR problem. And what you're having is a bunch of media people who are used to being able to go out and tell you what to think. You notice we don't do that here. I'll tell you what my opinion is. I hope you form your own opinion. If you disagree with me, we can disagree and still be friends. I don't have a problem with that. There are some programs that have been out there, and the conservative right is really a big issue with that, where they are so desperate to make sure that you believe whatever they say, and if you don't have the same opinion. Now, if you want to do it disrespectfully, it's different. But here you go. This is the story. And by the way, I love these stories that have multiple people on the byline. This is Jonathan Allen, Matt Dixon, Henry J. Gomez, no idea why he has a middle initial, Alan Smith, and Natasha Korecki. That's a lot of people to write one story over at NBC. It says, Dateline Washington, Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but the White House can't seem to kill his story. Clever. President Donald Trump and his aides have settled on silence as a strategy to stamp out criticism of his refusal to release files detailing the federal government's investigation of Epstein, according to a senior administrative official and Republicans familiar with the White House's thinking. People are obviously talking. The question is, are these sanctified leaks or are these sort of like scandalous leaks? Hard to say. For weeks, the stories about Epstein, financier and pal to political luminaries who died by suicide while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges in 2019 has been making headlines. There are many reasons to be interested in the Jeffrey Epstein story, not the least of which is how he got this illogical amount of wealth and the sort of story he came from. If he hadn't been involved in touching young women, then it probably would be one of those great American success stories. Guy starts off as a teacher at a private school with no college degree, but hired because of grit and pluck and talent and moxie or whatever and brilliance. And then he makes it over to be a trader at Bear Stearns. He starts an international asset recovery. And somehow in the middle of doing all these things, he is hired on by Les Wexner, a billionaire, to handle that guy's entire wealth management portfolio, is gifted a $50+ million penthouse. And I think at the time was the largest residential property in Manhattan. All of that's great. You know, like, okay, no big deal. But why did Les Wexner start paying him flat rate fees of millions and millions of dollars per year when that's not the business model that most people go on? Why was he gifted this apartment / penthouse / building for $50-something million? Why would you do that? Why was he named the financial, like he was the what do you call this when you sign over, power of attorney for a billionaire in the early 1990s? I think it was in 1991. Like, all those things are really strange. Makes you ask a lot of questions. And then his gal pal, who has been convicted of bringing him girls and trafficking young women to him, is hanging and rotting in prison right now. She was arrested under the first Trump administration, for whatever it's worth. July of 2020. We were told the other day that for the first time, the Justice Department is going to go out and speak with her. Why have they not done that before? This all seems like they're attempting to dissuade people from looking into it by doing it in a really, really bad way. And for those of you who think this is 4D chess, it's just as likely that it's just really, really bad marketing and a terrible understanding of what you can and cannot command of a base of people who have changed dramatically since 2020. I think that we covered that yesterday. There's been a trust loss for our institutions. You can't just trust me, bro, anymore and expect that people are going to go, well, I believe what Kash Patel has to say. I believe what Dan Bongino has to say. I believe what fill in the blank has to say. Those people are honest operators, and whatever they say, yeah, I also agree with it. There was too much time. There was too much buildup, and there's too much distrust that's been developing, and rightly so. All right. We also had some promises, massive overpromises and massive under delivery. Here's one of those promises and one of those accusations. Remember what he says at the end here. I want you to listen in close. The FBI is never going to give it up.
You can't get the list? You're going to accept Dick Durbin's word or whoever that guy is as to who is on that list and who isn't, and that it can and can't be released? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up, and we need to adjudicate this matter at the polls. God knows the FBI and DOJ aren't going to do anything.
God knows the FBI and the DOJ are not going to do anything, he said. Then he became FBI director. That's the voice of Kash Patel, if you're not familiar with it. And then he decided to do exactly what he said he would do, which is follow through with the FBI and the DOJ not doing anything. That seems really problematic. And he was yelling at members of Congress who have been told to ignore this, to shut up and color and move on to something else. So these stories, there's multiple stories here. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a couple of these stories. This one is coming from ABC News. It says that Ghislaine Maxwell engaged in a significant pattern of dishonest conduct, DOJ says in a 2022 memo from prosecutors, which cast doubt on her honesty. This is ABC News saying that going after this woman or doing an interview with her, the reason that it wasn't done at the time, this is Garland's DOJ, which means it's just the DOJ's DOJ, but that she was a dishonest operator. And so they weren't interested in getting information from her. But I think what people are talking about they're interested in, it may not even exist. The odds of Donald Trump's name being somewhere in those files in some sort of way, like any number of people can bring accusations. I had a discussion online yesterday and I had to actually go look this up. So I'll admit that I was inaccurate. They said, aren't the young women, now older women, probably my age or close to it, aren't the women who were trafficked, isn't their testimony evidence? And I thought, well, no, it's not evidence. It's just testimony. Testimony is something else. Testimony is a form of evidence, so I was incorrect. So we should know that it is a form of evidence, but it is certainly one of the least conclusive forms of evidence. And that comes from any time any law enforcement officers ever interviewed anybody. If you guys want to know how bad eyewitness testimony is, people who were there, go and look at any police report of any car accident, an automobile accident. Read what the offending driver did. Read what the victim driver did. Nobody thinks they're at fault. You rarely get someone say, yeah, that was it. I saw the light. It turned red. I sped through it. I thought I was going to make it. Boom. And I hit the front corner panel of that car. That's not what happens. People make all kinds of excuses, and they have this constructive memory where they believe things that didn't actually happen. And the video evidence from that traffic camera that's sitting up there shows something completely different than what either of those people saw, because they are limited by their own little perspective, and there's nobody sitting on the third-party view looking in. Victims oftentimes have terrible memories of things. And then imagine going back and trying to get it from 20 years ago, which is what happened in Maxwell's trial. They might have a good memory of it, but how many of you can remember when you were 15 or 16 years old? Now add in that it was a traumatic event. You've added all kinds of things and emotion to it over the years. You've added and subtracted things that you couldn't talk about or the things that you did. Ghislaine Maxwell engaged in a significant pattern of dishonest conduct, enabled and participated in the abuse of multiple teenage girls, and failed to take responsibility for her crimes. That was the assessment of federal prosecutors who brought the case forward against the longtime associate of Jeffrey Epstein and sent her to prison for 20 years. Now, 3 years later, amid the ongoing controversy surrounding the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein files, again, using that term files is very strange to me, because what do you think that means? I think a lot of folks think that it's just a drawer, like a pull-out drawer full of paperwork, when in fact it would be physical evidence, digital evidence. It would be, photographs of evidence that is on the ground. And then also a bunch of typed up 302 interviews, maybe recorded interviews, right? 3 years later, amid the controversy surrounding the Trump administration handling of these files, the Justice Department has decided to approach Maxwell, now 63, to purportedly learn more about her knowledge of whether Epstein's sex trafficking extended to other people than himself. They've made a big mess of this thing, and there's no way to really untangle it. This is a tar baby. The funny thing about the tar baby story, if you remember, This is an Uncle Remus sort of fable. The tar baby just sits there and does nothing. And it's Brer Rabbit goes out there and starts getting pissed at it and starts talking a bunch of, nonsense, and then gets into a fight with an inanimate object that's just made of tar. And the more you hit the tar baby, the more you're covered in tar, and the more you're stuck there. The tar baby just sits there. It's happy as a clam. It doesn't matter. You can throw punches all day long because it doesn't get hurt. This case doesn't go anywhere. Nobody else is getting hurt except the people that keep talking about it, and they're talking about it dishonestly. And the more that you try to obfuscate or try to angle or try to get people to believe certain things, the more you look filthy, the more you're covered in tar. Here's what the sentencing memo after her 2021 conviction. This is the assessment given. It says, in short, the defendant has lied repeatedly about her crimes, exhibited an utter failure to accept responsibility, and demonstrated repeated disrespect for the law and the court, the prosecutors in the Southern District of New York wrote in June of 2022. How many people have actually read the sentencing press release? Let's just do the summary of what was brought up there, because I do think it's relevant. She was sentenced to 20 years for conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse minors. He was never convicted of anything, it turns out. Here's what it looks like. Damian Williams, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, announced that she was sentenced in a Manhattan federal court by Judge Allison Nathan to 240 months in prison for her role in a scheme to sexually exploit and abuse multiple minor girls with Jeffrey Epstein over the course of a decade. She was previously found guilty in December of 2021 following a 1-month jury trial of conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illicit sex acts, conspiracy to transport minors to participate in illicit sex acts, and transporting a minor to participate in illegal sex acts, sex trafficking conspiracy, and the sex trafficking of a minor. Those are the convictions. From at least 1994 up to and including about 2004. This is the timeline that people do not remember. It's 21 years ago. Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and participated in Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by, among other things, helping Epstein recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse victims known to Maxwell and Epstein to be under the age of 18. The victims were as young as 14 years old when they were groomed and abused by Maxwell and Epstein, both of whom knew that their victims were in fact minors. And in part and furtherance of the scheme to abuse minor victims, Maxwell and Epstein enticed and caused minors to travel to Epstein's residences in different states. Goes on talking about grooming and the subjection to sexual abuse. Maxwell enticed and groomed minor girls to be abused in multiple ways, befriending them, asking about their lives, their schools, their families, taking them to movies and shopping trips, acclimating them to various different sexual things around Epstein, being present while those were happening, making the victims feel indebted and believing that they were actually being helped by Maxwell and Epstein. You'll notice there are 0 co-conspirators named in this. None. In some instances, Maxwell participated in the sexual abuse of these minors. Ultimately, they were subject to sexual abuses that included, among other things, touching of various places, which I won't read, using sexual toys, also nasty, directing victims to touch Epstein himself. These happened at residences in New York, Florida, and New Mexico, as well as Maxwell's residence in London, England. It goes on that the conspiracy is basically the two of them, two people deciding to do something, and it doesn't ever say anything about a network of other things happening. Nothing about blackmail. That doesn't mean that those don't exist. What it means is that you don't have evidence and neither do I. And so a lot of this has been supposition, and it's been egged on by the people who actually run the FBI, who actually have been campaigning on this to get Donald Trump in. And she was convicted of things that ended apparently on or around 2004. So 21 years old. That's an old situation. And now it's brought up. It's political hay for the Democrats to try to dunk on Trump, and they're doing nothing to help themselves. They're making themselves look foolish. Donald Trump announced that they were going to release the Epstein files, that they were going to petition a court to get access to all the grand jury information from Epstein's original conviction. The court said no. Shocker. What did we tell you? We had Steve Friend on the other day. We were talking about it. There's a reason why grand jury testimony is suppressed and is hidden. I'm confident that DOJ knew that when they went to go ask for it, but they asked for it anyway, and it is not going to be given to them. A judge rejects Trump's attempt to unseal grand jury testimony and transcripts in Florida. The administration has a separate effort pending to release Epstein-related grand jury transcripts in New York. You can bet that will probably also fail or be significantly redacted. The administration faced another legal setback in its effort. Is it really a setback at all? They knew that they weren't going to get it. The rejection follows Tuesday's orders from federal judges in New York that told the Justice Department its motion to unseal grand jury transcripts related to Epstein and associate Ghislaine Maxwell in that state were inadequate, and therefore they had to upgrade their filing. That may or may not be a normal thing. I've heard arguments either way, but Pam Bondi's DOJ put forward a filing asking for an unsealing, and the judge came back and said, you were too vague, so these are the things that I need to see. Apparently that is a tactic that some people use. They throw in what their request is, the judge says what they want to see, and then you'll see an updated filing. So we'll see. But I wouldn't expect a lot coming out of there. And so in more political theater, which is exactly what this is, top DOJ officials are going to meet with her as the House has pursued a subpoena. You're seeing on the screen that they're going to head home for recess. This is the House Republicans. They've been dismissed. They can expect to have Epstein questions, as I'm seeing on social media, left and right. Every time anybody posts anything, it's nonstop. And some of them are going to be leftist trolls, and some of them are going to be people that are of good nature that want to know, why were you campaigning on something that you didn't have? There's real simple questions. Mike Johnson should answer them. And what he does is sound slimy. Here he is sounding real slimy.
Quickly weigh in on Epstein. Many are hoping to see more of those files released. There could be future court proceedings. Is there any reason that you have to believe that any documents were tampered with by so-called deep state operatives?
Look, it hasn't been my area that I've worked on. Unfortunately, I wish I knew more about it. It's been in the Department of Justice. One of our concerns is, of course, that it was held in the hands of the DOJ leaders under the last administration, the Biden-Harris administration. And we all know how crooked and corrupt so many of those top officials were, how they engaged in lawfare against President Trump. And he has a concern, and I do as well, that things could have been doctored in those records. So that's part of the concern. But I'm for full transparency. We all are. Maximum transparency. The president is as well. There's no daylight between him and the Republicans in Congress. And we'll continue to advocate for that, to let the people see the records and draw the whatever conclusions they will.
I don't believe any of that. That sounds like the slimiest politician answer you could get. Take it for whatever it's worth. A House committee on yesterday voted to subpoena the Justice Department for files related to the investigation, as Republican leaders have resisted action on this issue. Democrats in a subcommittee for House Oversight forced a vote on the subpoena, and 3 Republicans voted alongside their Democrat members. The House GOP has opposed a separate measure that would force the Justice Department to release materials on Epstein. I'm not sure how they would actually enforce that. I don't think it's enforceable because they have no ability to go and get information that is not theirs. And there are a million ways you can hide behind this stuff, including ongoing investigation, national security concerns, so on and so forth. If anyone's ever done a FOIA, then you know what I'm talking about. FISA is a totally different problem. Republicans Nancy Mace and Scott Perry of Pennsylvania and Brian Jack of Georgia all voted in favor, so it passed along an 8-2 vote. So there you have it. The amended subpoena includes Epstein-related communication between former President Joe Biden, Biden administration officials, and the Justice Department. There's this belief that these other names are in there. This has been sort of this tactic, anything they can to act like they're doing transparency, but at the end of the day, we're talking about people that are deliberately not transparent. And what they'd like to do is they'd like to go after Tom Massey, who you're seeing on the screen, who did this thing talking about the Epstein Phase 2, and he's mocking the binder release because all of this stuff was self-concocted. This was created by Attorney General Pam Bondi, who made a spectacle of this stuff. Made a spectacle and never capitalized, never followed through. So what do we do with that? Makes no sense. Here's some more slimy Mike Johnson. Again, we've never seen those single subject appropriation bills. I believe him. If your first act in office is to lie, and then you continue to lie, and you never make good on the original promise for which you were put into office, at least in that particular position, there's this push right now to say that he's this great guy and he donates all this money and he didn't take the bump in pay. Yeah. Here's Mike Johnson trying to kind of backhanded slap at Tom Massey, who I don't think is going to have any problems, even if Donald Trump is mad at him, because Tom Massey is representing people who want to be represented by Tom Massey. And he continues to be represented by those people. And Tom Massey doesn't represent you. He doesn't represent the rest of America. He represents his constituents. So here's Mike Johnson trying to make an argument that if you're not a good team player, if you don't actually just fall in line and do whatever you're told and vote for huge omnibus bills, even though you were put in office to do the opposite of that, then you're a problem. And, I like Tom Massey more. I'm just going to say this guy looks like a slime ball to me. Listen to him. Tell me this isn't a greasy voice.
So as the leader of my party, I lead the incumbent protection program. Okay, that's my job. I go all around the country. I travel endlessly, incessantly. I have to raise over $300 million to do that, and we want everybody to come back. And some people, I try to protect them from themselves. They kick and scream and bite their own colleagues. Some people seem to enjoy in trying to inflict political pain on their own teammates. I'm not going to address anybody individually, but I'll tell you that some here are much more frustrated than others. There's a small, tiny handful, but one in particular who's given me lots of consternation. I don't understand. I don't understand Thomas Massey's motivation. I really don't. I don't know how his mind works. I don't know what he's thinking. Thomas Massey could have brought his discharge petition any time over the last 4.5 years. Over the last 4 years of the Biden administration, he could have done that at any time. And now he's clamoring as if there's some sort of timeline on it. It's interesting to me that he chose the election of President Trump to bring this, to team up with the Democrats and bring this discharge petition. So do I have some concern about that? I do. But in me and my way, I try to follow Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, never speak evil of another Republican. My gosh, it's hard to do sometimes around here. I also try to follow the scripture. It says, bless those who persecute you. So let me just say about Thomas Massey, could you just accept my Southern, bless his heart? Okay? I don't know what else to say about it.
I find that to be so disgusting. People who lean on scripture like that, people who try to quote men who are greater than themselves and act like they're the good guy, like this sort of passive aggressive. It's such an effeminate behavior. This is another little piece from the fact check on Mike Johnson. Rank and file Republicans were optimistic about spending bills in the afterglow of Mike Johnson's ascent into office. Several GOP members who voted to oust McCarthy said they were glad Johnson committed to pursuing single-issue spending bills rather than opting for larger spending packages like a continuing resolution, CR, or an omnibus. It's the entire reason that guy has the job he has. So if the first thing you did was lie, everything else you do, it's just, I'll just believe you. I just believe you that you are not trustworthy. I told you at the time that I was for no one for speaker only because, and I think Massey would have gone for this as well, for whatever it's worth. If you're not putting bills forward, then you're not wasting our money. And you're not spending it on stupid government things like an $11 billion FBI. That's best work this week is stopping a man with a firework. All right. I'm going to get into that. I want to show you the explosives that nearly humbled the city of New York and rocked it to its core, or maybe not at all. Those are the explosives shown in the picture. I've got the criminal complaint in front of me here, so we'll do that in just a second. We'll read about that. Before we do, let's say thanks to the folks over at Patriot Coolers. I guess if you wanted to pack a Patriot Cooler full of tannerite, that might make a really good explosive. It would actually be more devastating than the thing that was just shown there. This is the one I've got on the desk right now. It's wood grain. It matches the lovely background we have here. If you're just listening, picture warm wood on either side of the wall behind me and a warm wood looking, but actually vacuum sealed steel tumbler. It could be used as a weapon. It can keep your coffee hot as it does mine. It's spill proof. It fits in a cup holder, 20 ounces. Get the 20 ounce, get the 30 ounce, get the 40 ounce. Take your pick. I've got all of them. They're all great. They're all great for different reasons. The best lid in the market that I like right now is the one on the Major. It's kind of awkward because it's got a straw coming out of it and you can flip it open and drink it, but the options are endless and they actually are really useful. I use it every single day. We've got a massive one downstairs that I fill up with like my post-workout, whatever it is, fruit drink. Check out Patriot Coolers. You'll literally use it every single day. You'll never feel bad about it. You'll try to repair them if you drop them and dent them, which they still work just fine. It says Patriot right on here. It's got 13 bars, 50 stars on the bottom. They're thoughtful. They're clever. They're attractive. PatriotCoolers.com. The promo code is Kyle. It's always the same. KYLE. Save yourself 10%. If you spend $50 or more, you get free shipping. Order yourself a second lid because eventually you will drop it and break the lid. That's just what happens if you have kids or you're distracted or you try to drink coffee when you're not fully activated. PatriotCoolers.com, promo code KYLE. Should we do fireworks? Let's see here. Let's just do this. I'll end with the fun stuff. Does that sound fair, folks? We'll end with the O'Keefe telling people that he's not gay and Candace Owens owning herself by reading things that she's already debunked herself. I had 5 or 6 things about this Epstein. Let's go. Here we go. NBC News. Helped by AI. The headline is fantastic, by the way. The criminal complaint also good. Helped by AI, man built bombs he planned to detonate in Manhattan, officials say. Michael Gann, Gann, built 7 homemade bombs with the aid of artificial intelligence that he processed, calling it easier than buying gunpowder, according to court documents. You wonder, easier than buying gunpowder? What was going on here? Federal prosecutors have indicted a 55-year-old Long Island man, alleging that he built 7 homemade bombs. I don't know why they keep saying AI. The man, I guess that makes it scarier that the robots are teaching him how to do it. He transported the bombs from Long Island to New York City, stored 5 of them and 4 shotgun shells. No shit, 4 shotgun shells. You know what? Here, we'll just do it real quick. If you guys look on the screen right now, over in that corner, I have a Benelli Nova. It's just the standard Nova, not the Supernova. And on the side of it, I have 4 shotgun shells stored in a side saddle. And on the back, on the stock, I have 5 shotgun shells stored. And in the tube, I have 7 shotgun shells. I now have more dangerous things than Michael Gann, the man from New York, who apparently stored 5 fireworks and 4 shotgun shells on the roof of an apartment building in Soho. He intended to combine the shotgun shells with one or more of his improvised explosive devices. And he also made social media posts that are super, super scary. On March 27th, Gann posted a message to Donald Trump's official X account. It said, quote, "Dear POTUS, I'm thinking just now here in New York City that it's too bad that the wall wasn't built before the National Guard would have to come here for the protests and riotation." That's a new word on me, riotation. Or would you rather drop a bomb on this place while and because they seem to be coming and coming? So he's obviously highly educated and writes in complete sentences, not run-ons and ridiculous things, and he doesn't make up his own words. He also, 5 weeks later, in an unrelated post to absolutely no one, said, "Who wants to go out and play like there's no tomorrow?" So you can tell that he's obviously super dangerous and guilty. There he is, wearing a shirt that the sleeve monster managed to get a hold of and took his sleeves. He's in a cutoff t-shirt with a tucked-in looking like spandexy thing and some video roof surveillance of him carrying a couple of fireworks and a couple of shotgun shells, which we've already established. I have more gunpowder in my room right now, in this studio. He has not yet entered a plea. His attorneys have declined to comment. Good on them. He told law enforcement that he used 2 household compounds that he ordered online to make the improvised explosives. He also purchased 200 cardboard tubes and more than 50 feet of fuses. One of the devices he built was roughly 30 grams of explosive powder. That is 600 times the legal consumer firework limit. Now, I don't know that that is a thing in federal law, the legal consumer limit. But I assume that this is a New York state law that you cannot have 30 grams of explosive powder because New York is not America and having shotgun shells is scary to them as well. So what I was able to find online, and by the way, I had to go check this on the actual criminal complaint, which I have sitting in front of me as well. The criminal complaint also specifically states that one of the fireworks was roughly, I'm going to read it directly from the complaint, he stored precursor chemicals and at least 5 IEDs on the rooftops of the Soho apartment. They don't put that in there. Below is the photograph of the 5 IEDs recovered from the rooftops, as well as a still image from the video surveillance of Gann carrying some of the IEDs onto the rooftop, establishing that he did in fact put them there. They are on a rooftop next to a block of concrete, as far as I can tell. The black IED pictured, so hold on, we'll go ahead and show what that looks like. That is this one here on the far right-hand side of the screen, contained approximately 30 grams of explosive powder, which is approximately 600 times the legal limit for consumer fireworks. And again, I'm fairly confident that that is not a federal limit because people have bigger fireworks all the time. I live in Texas and I have seen them. Now I will play you what happens when you have a 30-gram firework explosive device. This is a man in a wooded area. I'm describing it for those listening. It says 30 grams on it. It is the same size as the black explosive that they showed. His is a longer tube instead of a fatter tube. He has a fuse coming out of it and a hole that is pre-drilled in a dead piece of a tree that looks like, I would say the diameter of the tree is maybe somewhere between 7 and 8 inches in diameter. He now runs backwards with shaky camera work. And you are now going to see at the dead center of the screen where he lit a 30-gram explosive device. And it just went off. And it shot a really cool smoke ring. And you can see the smoke ring traveling. But what's crazy is it didn't even level a 8-inch tree that it was in the middle of and buried deeply in. That tree is still standing. That broken dead log that he put it in is still upright. Because 30 grams of fireworks is not that impressive. It doesn't actually do that much, even though it is 600 times the legal limit in the state of New York, which is not America. He stored at least 4 shotgun shells, which he intended to combine with one or more of the IEDs on the rooftop. They were later recovered by the FBI. The best part is what happened next. Gann allegedly produced these multiple improvised explosive devices intended for use in Manhattan, said the head of the New York field office, a guy named Chris Rayao. Due to the successful partnership with law enforcement agencies in New York, Gann was swiftly brought to justice before he could harm any innocent civilians. One of the witnesses, a U.S. military veteran, told the FBI that Gann was mixing explosives in Inwood, a town in Long Island. I feel like I went there last year or the year before. He said, "What kind of veteran are you? You see a problem going on in the neighborhood and you do nothing about it?" And then he pointed to a Jewish school. Ooh, so we've got anti-Semitism in the mix now here, allegedly. A second witness agreed to make phone calls to Gann while the FBI listened in. So here's your informant version. Somebody agreed to go out there and talk to you. Gann told one witness on the call that he lit one of the devices near the East River on the FDR Drive. That the device had exploded and it scared him. Then, according to witnesses, he was considering disposing of the remaining 5 devices by throwing them in the river or turning them in to the New York City Fire Department. After he blew one up, he became afraid of his own devices. On June 5th, the day of the alleged call, law enforcement agents saw Gann walking down the street carrying a shoulder bag, according to the complaint. When the agents identified themselves to Gann, he told them that he was on his way to the fire department to drop the devices off, something he'd already said in a recorded phone call. After being read his rights, he told the government officials that he wished to make pyrotechnics and used AI, or an artificial intelligence, to learn which chemicals to purchase and mix. It also goes on, the complaint says, that he created 4 devices and threw 3 of them from the Manhattan side of the Williamsburg Bridge. 2 devices fell in the water, but 1 fell on the train tracks, and they were able to recover it. He built explosive devices and he stored them on a rooftop in Soho. He threw one onto subway tracks, putting countless lives at risk. The real story here is, if you guys are not tracking, a man made homemade fireworks which have the ability to not blow up a small tree. And then he tried to get rid of them because he scared himself. Again, he looks like this. And while he was trying to take them to the fire department to dispose of them, the FBI arrested him because he pointed at a school that had some Jewish markings on it. $11 billion a year. We're doing a great job. We're doing a great job. This is why we should have single item appropriation bills, because you'd have to go out and justify how you spend $11 billion on that. Yes, they did a little takedown the other day. They showed that they captured 19 sex predators across the entire country, in a country of 340 million people. They got 19 people in an online digital sting from the dark web. By the way, the FBI probably arrests 19 child sex traffickers or pedophiles or people creating child pornography every single week, because they used to do 1 to 2 a week in just the field office that I was in Washington, D.C. And there are 56 field offices. So this is transactional daily business. But they have to tout the wins where they can because they're always trying to get funding. And luckily, they're going to stuff it in an omnibus bill that this guy is going to 100% go and push out there and say everybody has to deal with it. To say that the FBI saved New York City from fireworks is a really, really bold move. I guess they assume that nobody is going to go read it. But we read it. We'll move on to some funny things here because we got about a couple more minutes left. And I want to try to actually be a little bit tight today. The American Radicals podcast will be going on in about 15 or 18 minutes. So if you guys are listening live, then you know that you can go watch them. It's at AmRadPod over on X, and they're at AmRadPod over on Rumble as well. Check them out. How about we talk about the Macrons, because this is quite funny. Or maybe it's just funny to me. I don't know. I've got some pretty enjoyable stuff here. This is Candace Owens. The story was reported in NBC News. French President Emmanuel Macron sues Candace Owens over claims French First Lady was born a man. The Macrons accused Owens of waging a lie-filled campaign of global humiliation and relentless bullying to promote her podcast and expand her frenzied fan base. I mean, she apparently said that they lied about her and that they actually slandered her. She's always claiming the victim. You know what leftists always do? And Candace Owens is a real quirky character. She started off on the hard political left and immediately pivoted and is a self-proclaimed conservative, despite being, I think, a pregnant mom right now and working nonstop to make this thing. She couldn't even be away, or maybe she's not had her baby, but she couldn't even be away for more than a couple of weeks before she had to get back to her audience. I asked somebody about it, why they thought. The assessment of one of the people that actually studies this podcast pretty aggressively claimed that she's just sociopathic. I don't make such guesses, but the behavior is really weird. This is Candace Owens versus Candace Owens. We love it when we can play this stuff. I guess they guys don't realize that the internet's forever.
It's incredible. If you read through this, guys, that Brigitte actually and intentionally defames me throughout the filing. Says all of these things that are untrue. Here are just a few of the things that she says about me. Long debunked anti-Semitic tropes, such as a blood libel.
Catholics and Christians were going missing on Passover, and then they would find bodies, across Europe, and they were able to trace them back to Jews.
And Holocaust distortion. Elie Wiesel, that he fictionalized stories in his book, Night. That with him, they're establishing educational books related to the Holocaust, going so far as to dismiss the atrocities of Joseph Mengelé's medical experiments as mere propaganda. The Nazis experimented on innocent people. That just sounds like bizarre propaganda. None of that is true. None of that is true.
So she actually said all the things that they claim that she said. And she said them like in the last couple of weeks. I've been watching these clips pop out. These are so funny. Like, why would you even make these? Like, does she not even remember that she said this stuff? She's claiming that she didn't say that. Imagine going on, and like, imagine me coming on a podcast and saying something absurd and crazy. Like, who cares if she is a man? If it actually is a man, what does it have to do with anything? But then thinking that you have the right to adjudicate it and you're going to send, quote unquote, your doctors. Candace Owens has doctors that are going to go draw some random lady's blood for no reason. I'm telling you, we deserve a better class of grifter. We really do. Americans deserve a better class of grifter. If this woman was not a black female, there's no way that anybody would be listening to this stuff. She was doing social autopsy. Go and look it up. Go look up social autopsy. She immediately claimed that she's never seen any racism in America, that she's never seen anything like that because that ingratiated her to the political right. But she started off her strange little career by suing her high school for like white boys in Connecticut who were leaving death threats in voicemails. And she got something like almost $40,000. It was like $38,000 or $35,800 or something crazy. Like, she got a bunch of money for suing because of theoretically racist death threats. Here she is saying, give me your blood to the First Lady of France. Again, why would you even think this is even a halfway reasonable thing? And even though she lives in Tennessee, her business is based in Delaware, and they are going to accept this suit. And so she's going to have to deal with this. Everybody out there is looking at this going like, well, you did say the things that they're alleging, and you can't probably prove them. You know, truth is an absolute defense against defamation, except you can't prove that that's a man. And you're going to send doctors.
You were born a man and you will die a man. That's the point I'm making. So give us a sample. I'll send my doctors to take your blood. Figure it out real quick, however you want to go about this. Hey, how about just giving us some pictures again of you growing up, raising your children? That would be fine. For whatever reason, to phone, by the way, like I said, we'll get to the bottom of it, right? That is what Discovery is for. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. You're probably hoping, this will go away, and at least we'll say we sued her. We'll say we went after her. She'll probably file for this to get dismissed. I'd like to make it to Discovery. I think that we owe that to the world. Anyways, you guys, we are revolting against this. We're revolting against the perverts that run the world. And I want to be very clear here. I count you among them. I think you're sick. I think you're disgusting. And I am fully prepared to take on this battle on behalf of the entire world. Okay? That's what I'm going to say. On behalf of the entire world, I will see you in court.
It's so dumb. It's like, okay, I'm telling you, we should have better grifters. It's such a straight, like, who cares? What does this have to do with anything? You have no proof. You've made some crazy allegations. They're suing you. You're probably screwed. You think they don't know how Discovery works? The guy's a leader of a first world country. You think they don't have lawyers that know more than Candace Owens? It's so weird. It's such a weird thing. Anyway, and for anybody claiming that she's conservative, I don't think she is. For anyone claiming that she's Catholic, she seems like she's missed a lot of what goes on in the Catholic Church and the teachings. She's not living that really well. It's just a strange time to watch all this stuff and just see people melt down. And then because of that, I also thought that we had some funny stuff. So this is something I've been sitting. This is on my desktop. I have to go and do a deposition. Speaking of things like Discovery. By the way, Discovery is very flexible. Do you know that? One of the Discovery questions that James O'Keefe's attorney sent over to me was that I give them a list of every single podcast that I've ever spoken about James O'Keefe, of which I don't have a list, and I'm not willing to go do the work. I've done as much as I can. I've cited it in some places, and I'm going to give them Google. I'm going to give them the podscripts.io search engine. They can go mess with it all there. They can look for James O'Keefe's name. I speak pretty clearly, and AI picks up my voice quite well. James has been obsessed with this crazy idea that for years, he was going to be able to pin his own malfeasance on someone else. And for what I'm seeing, it looks like Candace Owens has done this meltdown. Everything is the fault of the Jews and all those other kind of crazy things. We're seeing like two people have different sort of crash out businesses. James's is funny. He's been doing a tour, and I'm going to show you 2 different episodes of this tour. I assume he'll do more, where he goes out and tells people that he's not gay and tries to come after me, which is really amusing. I don't know why I think this is so funny, other than like I'm going to go sit for a deposition, and they think they're going to create this documentary about what happened to Project Veritas. Like so many people are so concerned about this. It's really straightforward what happened to Veritas. James O'Keefe used the funds for a nonprofit for nonprofit purposes, and for not nonprofit purposes. He was like paying for all kinds of crazy stuff. They failed an audit when they went out there and assessed it, and then they booted him from the board to try to get his spending under control because he was spending donor money on all kinds of wild stuff that were not appropriate, like helicopter trips to go get his boat fixed. I've seen the audit. It's actually available online. You guys can find the audit yourself. Anyway, this is actually funny stuff. This was him with totally not scripted calls that somebody totally didn't just call in or like leave him a totally script. These are not his friends setting up this podcast episode, but I've had this on my desk. I don't want to tell you what the name of the file is, but it's pretty offensive because it's really funny. And here's the other grifter that I'm laughing about this morning.
The intimate text messages that were shared about James and his girlfriend. This is an ex-girlfriend of mine about a year ago. Kyle Seraphin, the FBI agent. By the way, hint, hint, that might be part 2, 3, 4, or 5 of the series. Kyle's going to have a nervous breakdown when he hears this. I don't care. He's a Fed. He's a disgusting, nasty Fed boy, and I'm not afraid of him. And he's a punk, and he's a loser, and I will get those unredacted affidavits. So help me God.
That's the same as saying, I'm going to send my doctors to get your blood. I'm having a nervous breakdown. What is wrong with these people? He's talking to a phone while he's on a podcast. Yes, they haven't figured out how to integrate it, which we learned how to do here too. I self-produced this podcast at a higher level, and he's got all this staff and millions of dollars to do it. It's really funny. Anyway, that's not the only thing that was said, so we're just going to keep playing. This is kind of like Griftopia here. This is the spin the wheel of grift. Enjoy this one.
But some of these people are hurling homophobic insults at me, and some have said that that was a projection of who they are. So if you're constantly calling someone a, quote, faggot, and you're constantly calling someone, quote, gay, maybe, just maybe, that's what you are, okay? You know, and that's my response to that.
Sorry. I've been holding on to this for a long time. I laugh at this sometimes when I'm having a bad day. I just pray James don't keep saying that. It's so weird. I don't think I've ever said that about James, by the way. I did talk to one of his board members who said that I'd be shocked to find out that James doesn't know the touch of a man. He did say that, but you know, they knew him better than me. He's gonna have to square that with somebody else. That's not my problem. Anyway, so he's been going on this little tour. This is him. I think last night he went on Alex Stein's show. By the way, I've met Alex Stein in person. Alex Stein has met my wife in person. He's seen me. He's shaken my hand. He's humped my leg, actually, Alex Stein, at James O'Keefe's event, of all things. I think Alex Stein wanted nothing to do with any of this. They've got Joe. This is the clowniest thing you could do. They've got Joe Exotic on the Tiger King on the phone, James O'Keefe in studio, and he decides to tell everybody, like kind of unbidden, that he's really worried about me. So here's the thing. We've been thinking about moving out of the house that we're in right now. We're going to move into James O'Keefe's head because it's rent-free in there. Here we go.
Some people say that you're anti-gay because you sleep with so many women, right? I'm just kidding.
I think they were upset that I wasn't gay.
Yeah, that's what it is.
They're gay.
They're mad that
like
you're
Kyle
not gay.
Seraphin.
Okay, well...
He doesn't want anything to do with that. And here's the last one, because I'm going to be talking to Alex Jones. Okay, so yeah, I'll go. I'm going to probably do Alex Jones' show today sometime. I think we're going to go on at the 2 o'clock hour. That's Central, so it'll be 3 o'clock hour for those of you on the East Coast. I don't know how to do the math going back the other way. But he was on Alex Jones the other day. Someone shared this with me as well. So I have this like little compilation of funny things that just sit on my desktop. And I go, what on earth is this guy doing?
James O'Keefe is secretly a candy ass, and then they get your text messages that she's dating all these beautiful women. I mean, it's just...
That was crazy. You're talking about the former federal FBI agent who published my girlfriend's text messages. Like, newsflash, James O'Keefe, not gay.
They do like a whole bit on it. I don't know what the funnier thing is James going on a media tour trying to tell people that he's not gay, or Alex Jones referring to gay people as candy asses. That might be the best part of the whole thing. It's so good. All right, let's see. What other nonsense do we have out here today? I had something else set up. Oh, let's just cover this down as well, because this has been going on. There is a big push, and I want to just like kind of briefly touch on it. There's this big push that we're going to see something happen. And there's maybe been a slight development in the KFAB and the theatrical thing that we talked about earlier this week, where we're hearing Tulsi Gabbard came forward. I think she actually kind of dropped the game just a little bit by saying what it was. That doesn't mean that there was not malfeasance that happened throughout the Obama years. I think if you guys pay attention to this podcast, that we've told you that the Obama era was the turning point for our intelligence agencies, at least in the second stage of the war on terror. The first piece was September 12th, 2001. Terrible decision making started happening. The second thing happened is that under Obama, they basically gave the keys to the NSA's databases over to the FBI, either in anticipation of Hillary Clinton being in office because it was prior to the election, or as a sort of hedge against Donald Trump being in office. So here is a really good little compilation from Maze Moore over on X. He does great video archive work. This is the big lie. I wanted to play this for you guys. And then I'm going to play something from Tulsi Gabbard, which I think actually tells you our prosecutions, we're going to go after someone. I don't think it's really going to happen the way people keep hoping. And I think she kind of explained that.
Voters in America should decide who our president is, not Vladimir Putin.
The Russians offered help. The campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president.
The bottom line of this dossier, the bottom line allegation, the point of this is they colluded, they helped, they were in on it.
What does Vladimir Putin have on President Trump?
And they've also decided who they want to see become president of the United States, too, and it's not me.
Secondly, I found out that Vladimir Putin doesn't want me to be president.
We need to make it very clear, whether it's Russia, China, Iran, or anybody else.
This election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved.
As 17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed.
17 intelligence agencies said
50 national security officials who served in Republican information in administration.
The 2 minutes has expired there. I will play that whole thing. I'll put it over on the, I think it's like 2.5 minutes long, but I want to put that over on Locals. So if you guys want to go to kyleserafin.com, you guys can find that. It'll be after today's show, but it'll be available. It's just if you want to go look at it. It's a really good compilation. It's a good mix up. Here's where I think the problem is. Everybody expects to see, I don't know, there was an announcement, there's memes. If it doesn't follow with indictments, we're not going to see it. And I think Tulsi Gabbard more or less said that that's the case. Her job is to release information. Good on her. Good on her for declassifying and putting stuff out and trying to go out there and maybe move the left. I think they're trying to move off Epstein. I think that's pretty clear of what's happening. Steve Baker said that they had this report prepared a month ago and it just happened to drop right on a Friday during the Epstein week of nonsense. That may be true. That doesn't take away from the fact that I think the administration is hoping that this will push something forward, that they're doing press conferences on it. At the end of the day, though, what she does say in this press conference is kind of telling. Her job is giving information out. DOJ's job is deciding whether or not they can actually indict against that. And I think that actually tells you. Why is Pam Bondi not there for the same press conference? If this was legit, that's what you'd expect. And creating a strike force and creating a task force of people or like all the other nonsense. It's just, it doesn't ring true, because at the end of the day, if you want to go after people, you just go get them. You go investigate them. Nobody ever holds a press conference because you opened a file at the FBI and started investigating someone. The press conference or the press release comes after you have an indictment, after you have a conviction, after you have sentencing. Those are the three. They happen all the time, by the way. Indictment or arrest, you're going to get one. And then they put out the complaint sometimes or the facts of the case. After a conviction or a plea deal, you put out the facts of the case. And then lastly, the sentencing, you put out the facts of the case and what it resulted in. That's how DOJ does messaging, historically.
The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts, like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
Okay, all of that can be true. I think anybody who watched Hillary Clinton thought that she wasn't quite right. She would have like those weird laughing fits. She would say things and act like real strange. Okay, fine. And that made her very unlikable, and America didn't want it. And so thankfully they chose otherwise. Here's the thing that we're all kind of missing. Donald Trump was president for 4 years. Shouldn't the bigger scandal be is that people that were working for him previously, the guy, I don't know, like who's currently running the CIA that used to be in Tulsi Gabbard's seat, didn't come up with this in the first round? Why was that? Why did it take this long to get there? You can't make claims that now a new administration is in and they're getting the unedited documents and then also claim that the previous administration edited a bunch of documents about Epstein because government documents are so easily malleable. The time range of it is silly to me. And again, like I said, she goes out there and says, it's not my job to go out there and do prosecutions. My job is to give you evidence or information. Great, good job. I'm glad Tulsi's doing it. I really am. But I'm also really concerned. The people that are still in this administration that were part of the past one that didn't fix the problem, that seems problematic. If you're making allegations that the DOJ was out there altering information about Epstein or anything else, isn't that where the real investigation should be? And shouldn't it be into former CIA and, Trump administration officials that didn't give him the unvarnished truth previously, that they didn't release it? All of that stuff is kind of crazy too. This stuff is problematic. Here she is saying essentially that she's not in charge of indictments.
Director Gabbard, thank you. So just two questions, but to begin on that. The president yesterday, you've inferred that the former president helped lead a coup. Based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
So she's not using the legal definition of the word treason, which is always problematic. So it gets people really emotional and they get really excited. And that's when you start seeing all the memes. The reality is, if you don't actually come forward with something, it's not going to matter at all whatsoever. Let me hit one last little piece here that's on a totally different direction, but I did find it this morning interesting out of Catholic Votes Loop. It was a survey saying that 1 in 4 Gen Zers, not millennials, but Gen Z, are regretting going to college or the major that they chose. And about a quarter of them, it sounds like, would either not go to college whatsoever and do trade school instead, or they would choose a more lucrative or reasonable sort of college degree instead of getting debt for something that didn't make any money. And 19% of them said that their degree did nothing to help them contribute to the work they actually did. I was in that category. The problem is that we've been told over and over again, and we're seeing this like sort of strange thing. This is the American lie that is unraveling in real time for a lot of folks. And young people are seeing it faster because they lived through COVID. They lived through all the sort of the institutional distrust that people are now seeing. When I was a kid, if you didn't go to college, you were told you were not going to get it. You were going to starve on the streets. That's what they told you. That's what happens. But people who don't go to college, you're screwed. No ability to earn an income. My college degree has zero to do with what I do, other than I read widely. I learned a couple of things about how to think. I had experiences in engineering and biology and some other things that I don't use them, but maybe it helped me think critically. Theoretically, going to university was something that the elites did for most of human history. People who had money and leisure, they could go and learn. They would learn about the great books. They would learn about rhetoric. They would learn about all the things that were interesting to them, but did not have to translate directly into a trade. And you didn't worry about whether or not your accountant, your bookkeeper, had 5 credits of Western civilization under his belt. It just wasn't relevant. But since we've tried to make everybody like a worldly person, what we've done is we've made college useless, and it doesn't actually train people to do anything. Given the choice, I'm not sure I would go again. I learned more in high school by a lot. And so you're seeing people, at least in Gen Z, and I think my children's generation after that, will also look out there and go, yeah, we're not buying into what you guys have sold. And so that starts at the top of government lies. It starts at the politicians who have told us things that we know are not true because we're all seeing it. It's not legit. It's not useful. And then this permanent lie that you cannot have a successful life without going to college is also falling apart. Here's just Mike Rowe. I think we played this the other day, but he's talking about the things that people need to do. And it's not learn to code. And it probably isn't go read great books. Although I wish people would, because it would be a lot more interesting to have discussions with, like, some of the smartest people you've ever met didn't go to college because they actually did what college was supposed to do. They actually just went and read the damn books, kind of Good Will Hunting style. Here's Mike Rowe telling you in the near term, people are not going to be worrying about whether they learn to code. They're going to be worrying about whether or not they can build physical structures, because we still don't have machines doing that.
We've been telling kids for 15 years to code. Learn to code, we said. Yeah, well, AI is coming for the coders. They're not coming for the welders. They're not coming for the plumbers. They're not coming for the steam fitters or the pipe fitters or the HVAC. They're not coming for the electricians. You know, that Ideas Festival I was telling you about in Aspen, I sat there and listened to Larry Fink say, we need 500,000 electricians in the next couple of years.
Yeah. What's even funnier is there was a story that was in NBC earlier this week that actually said the learn to code crowd and the fact that AI was coming for coders is actually not even as effective as people think. That they assumed that it would increase human efficiencies by 24 to 30%, and it actually decreases efficiencies by some teens, 14 or 19%. I'll get the article for maybe tomorrow. But the whole learn to code thing and the fact that AI is going to replace, it's not going to do it. AI is a boogeyman, it seems like, in a lot of ways. Kind of like this. The guy who has fireworks, that he learned how to use AI. That's the only tie-in that I see here, is that there's just a lot of like fantasy fear that goes on out there. At the end of the day, the real world is still the real world. And if you guys step away from nonsense news for just a few minutes, you'll also realize that. So that's what I have to say. Let's go ahead and talk about the people that we actually hate. I want to say thank you for all of you for listening. Make sure that you guys have liked the program. If you're watching over here on Rumble, great. Thanks so much for being here. If you're watching over on YouTube, also appreciate you there. Make sure you guys have given us a like before you end. If you're listening on Spotify and you're hearing ads, or if you're listening after the fact and you hear ads, those are intentional. Let me know if they're really disruptive. It actually seems like they're a decent monetization, so we appreciate you guys sitting through them. There should only be one in the middle of the program. If you want to support us financially, you can do so over at Locals. You can also join the free community there. It's totally easy to do. Let's talk about people that Steve Friend, I assume, hates. This is pretty funny stuff. We've all met these people. These are the people that are going to college, getting their degrees, and wasting all of our times. This is the guy that stops in the middle of the door because he just walked into a store and the door's open for him, and he didn't even know why he was in the store in the first place. So enjoy this little palate cleanse of people we hate. We all hate this person. If you're this person, you even hate this person.
I just walked through the doors of this store. I'm going to stand right here and plan my next move.
Oh, I see that there's a car behind me in this parking lot. I'm just going to keep walking right in the middle of the driving area.
Oops, I'm in the dentist waiting room and I'm getting a phone call. Better put this one on speakerphone.
Well, I'm all done with that now. Oh, it's my turn to order after spending over 20 minutes in line? Gosh, I have no idea. I'd better start the decision-making process right now.
Hey kids, why don't you run around and scream and climb all over the chairs while I wrap up this 45-minute phone call with your Uncle Rich? Great news. CVS didn't honor an expired coupon of mine, so I took it out on a service worker and held up the line.
Okay, guys, let's group up for a photo right in the middle of this walkway.
Excuse me, do you have any cold, stinky, meaty sandwiches I can bring onto my crowded flight?
Everybody stand a considerable distance away from the camera so as to take up as much real estate as possible. Let's grab about 9 or 10 of these.
This museum sign says do not touch, so I will only touch it a little bit.
Now kids, when we get to the theme park, be sure to film every second of every ride on your phones.
I'm walking with the flow of foot traffic, but I just remembered I have to quickly stop and turn.
You guys know who those people are. If you're one of those people, don't be that person today. Go out and be a better person. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you guys for Friendly Friday tomorrow. We'll get Steve Friend on. I may have to play this for him again. Maybe I'll just warm him up with this because I know that stuff gets him hot. He runs into those people everywhere he goes, and then he texts me about it. So that's how I know that that's the opposite Steve Friend. Speaking of, we're going to go to the American Radicals podcast if you guys are watching on Rumble. God bless you. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.